Why, hello again. You're back for more. Okay, today we're talking about elements of lit. We're going to talk about point of view. Okay, this section is, it's probably going to take up a lot of space. I don't know, man. Maybe I can just condense it. I'm going to risk it. I'm going to risk it here. Okay, we're going to talk about point of view. Keep in mind that this is a series of videos where I'm talking about all 10 elements of a story. And if this is the first one that you are watching, then you should go back and watch the other ones because you'll be really confused. All right. I'm not able to edit these videos, so that's why they're so off the cuff. Okay, point of view. We're just going to jump right in, and I'm going to use video games to demonstrate this concept here. So, because I was terrible at identifying point of view when I was a kid. So hopefully this will make it easier. All right. Point of view is the camera angle of the story. Probably should have spaced that down one line. Darn. Okay. Anyway, point of view is the camera angle of the story. Okay. A lot of kids know that there's first person and third person. There's actually more to it than that. So we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to explain what I got. Here are your different types, okay? The first type you have is first person. First person is where you are the character. So say that. You are the narrator. You are the character. You are the narrator. You are the character. That's how it goes. Okay? Now, in situations like this, the book, video game, whatever it may be, the narrator is going to say, I all the time. Okay? First person, you are the character. Now, to demonstrate this concept, like I said, I'm using video games. So I have the amazing 2007 first-person shooter called Portal. Portal is a video game where you wake up, you are a girl named Shell who wakes up in a science facility, and you are told by a disembodied robot voice that you are part of a science experiment. And then they give you a portal gun. It's a gun that shoots portals. So when you shoot a portal like over here and you shoot a portal over there, if you go in one of them, you come out the other one. It's a really, really good first-person shooter. It's a really good game. So if you want to remember this, because most teenagers understand what FPS means, it's a first-person shooter, you can just write that right there. Boom. Done. Now, I'm going to extend on this a little bit. I'm just going to draw an arrow down here. There is also something called first-person. I'm just going to put first P, peripheral. So this is kind of a rare first-person. You don't see it too often, but first-person peripheral is where you are the narrator, you are the character, whatever, that is telling the story, but you are not the protagonist. So, like, you are, if you guys remember from our character lesson, you would be like the deuteragonist or the tritagonist. You would be a secondary character or some character that's off to the side. It's not terribly common, but it does happen in some books. So I'm going to say you are the narrator, but a side character. If you can squeeze that in there, not run out of room like I did. So first person peripheral, you are the narrator, but you are a side character. Okay. One of the best examples I can give for a book like that, because there are some kids that are like, hey, tell us a book. The Great Gatsby, which is probably one of the most famous American novels ever made. I can pull up the cover real quick. The Great Gatsby is a story about a guy named Nick Carraway. And Nick Carraway is this kind of young dude who's like, hey, man, I want to go to New York and visit my cousin. Looks like that, right? And when he goes to New York, it's in the 1920s, so it's like party central, right? And he ends up staying with a guy named Gatsby. And Gatsby is loaded. This dude is rich, right? And this dude loves to flaunt his money. So Gatsby has parties like every other night or whatever it is. He has parties constantly where he just invites random people from New York to come chill at his house and just get drunk. And so Nick is like staying in a guest house nearby, and so he just has to witness all of these things. The book is called The Great Gatsby, and so Gatsby basically is the protagonist. However, Nick Carraway is the narrator of the story, so it's kind of a first-person peripheral situation happening here. Okay, but it's not terribly common. Moving on, you have third person, okay? There are several different types of third person, so we're going to get into that as well. Third person. What is third person? It is where you are a camera that is watching the action. You are a camera watching the action. So first person is you are the character. Third person is you're a camera watching the action. One of the best examples that I can give here is for any third person video game like The Last of Us, Grand Theft Auto, God of War, Red Dead Redemption, Tomb Raider, Legacy of Kain, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, Rayman, Super Mario 64. Like, I could just keep going on. Yeah, those are all games that are third person. So literally, you are not controlling your main character. You are a camera that is watching the main character. And that's basically how it is. So to kind of summarize this is when a narrator is going to say he, she, it, or they. Narrator uses he, she, it, or they, them, pronouns. Hopefully your handwriting is a little better than mine. Sorry. It's been a long day, man. Okay. Narrator uses he, she, it, or they. All right. Now keep in mind, just to show you a really quick comparison using old video games, because why not? So this is a screenshot from Half-Life 2, which is one of the greatest first-person shooters ever created in the history of ever. And you literally are Gordon Freeman, a scientist who has to solve a problem, explore the world, and do all that other stuff, right? Then you have this compared to Dead Space. Dead Space is a third-person action horror game where you play Isaac Clarke, and you're a dude who's an engineer on a spaceship, and bad things happen. So that's the difference. It is literally you are the character versus you are a camera watching the character. So there you go. Now there's different types of third person, and this is going to look a little bit complicated, but it will be okay because we are here together, and I will walk you through these notes. All right. So these are the different types of third person that one can find. There are 4 main categories. I'm just going to put them like that because being the genius I am running out of space. So there's actually going to be, just so you know, there's going to be a second person. We are going to talk about second person here. I'm just going to have to squeeze it on that line because I didn't plan this out too great. But that's okay, because sometimes you make mistakes, and that's just how it is. Life moves on. It's not a big deal. All right, anyway, these are the types of third person that one can expect to see. All right, I'm going to give a definition, and I will explain them shortly. So take a look at this. The first type that you're going to have is called third person objective. So on my notes right here, just to show you, I'm going to put it like this: third P objective. Okay. What is third person objective? This is when the narrator is explaining the story as a fact and they do not give their opinion. All right. So narrator explains story as a fact. As fact / no opinion, meaning they will not throw in their personal thoughts on the matter. It is purely fact. Okay. The next style that you're going to have is called third person limited. Third person limited is going to be Sorry, I'm getting caught up here. Third person limited is when the story is going to be limited to a single character. So whatever the audience sees, or sorry, whatever the character sees, that's what the audience is going to see. So I'm going to have on here, narrator is one character. You could also say it's one character's perspective, if you understand that. In parentheses here, I'm going to say they see, you see. So whatever they see, you're going to see. Okay. Next, after that, you're going to have third person omniscient. You usually hear this term a lot when you study religion and things like that, because people will say, oh, well, God is omniscient. He knows all. So this means omniscient means you know everything. So third person omniscient is going to be when you have a narrator that knows what's going on in the story. They know everything, and they probably will interject with their opinion. So the narrator is all-knowing. The narrator is all-knowing, and they will give an opinion. I'm just going to put a plus sign and say will give opinion. And again, I hope you spaced this out better than I did, but it does still work for demonstration purposes. I didn't have to skip all these lines up here. I just chose to. So, okay. But it's not a big deal, right? Now, the last style that you're going to have is called third-person multiple. Third-person multiple is when the story is going to switch narrators spontaneously, and it's going to go from perspective to give the audience a different take on the story. So third-person multiple is when the narrator switches between characters. Narrators switch between each other. I'm sure you can word that many different ways. Narrators switch between each other. Okay. Now, to give a really good, sorry, you can't really see it, but I do have second person down there, squeezed at the bottom of the page. That's just kind of my boo-boo. But luckily, second person's really short, so that'll be okay. Now, to demonstrate this to my kids, okay, like third person multiple, that sounds kind of extreme. What does that actually look like in a real story? So the sequel series, just so you know, the sequel series to Red Rising takes place like 10 years after the main trilogy, and it's also a POV novel, which means every single chapter is a different character. There are many different series that do things like that. For example, this series right here, which is one of my favorites as well, Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Or Shusterman? I don't know how to say his name. Anyway, Scythe is great. This series is addicting. Every single chapter, it's really odd how this is written. Every single chapter basically starts off with a different character, but eventually the story flows back into the main cast of characters that you have. It's a brilliant way of telling the story. I absolutely love it. Neil Shusterman also has another series called Unwind, which is this one right here. Unwind is fantastic. I highly recommend. That story does something very similar as well, where every single chapter switches. Now, if you want to see something real crazy, kids, I show this in my classroom. So this is going to be a character chart for the characters in Game of Thrones. Pretty much all of these characters are going to be important, so that's just kind of what it looks like. Those are all important characters in Game of Thrones. And in case that looks like too many characters to deal with, well, it definitely can be. My first time watching that show, I was thoroughly confused. I stopped a few episodes in and was like, I need to start over. And then I did, and it was just like super easy. Once you get a hold of like the main families in that story and you understand who's who, the story is really easy. But yeah, those are the different types of third person. It's pretty simple, okay? Most of the time, at least in my class, I will not test you on these different types. if you're doing the online program that we're working on right now, Florida Virtual, you will be tested on those types. So it would be to your best benefit to have them written down. Okay. Now, like I said, down here at the bottom, if I can get it in the shot, down here at the bottom, I have second person. I am so sorry that it is cramped down there. Poor second person, okay? Second person is special. This is another one that's like not super common, but it's becoming more common. Second person is where the characters in the story are going to interact with you. Like how right now I'm looking right at the camera, which means I'm looking at you, assuming you're looking at my eyes, and I'm talking directly to you. What I'm doing right now is literally second person. So second person, what you want to write down for that is characters talk to you, and then underline you. That's the easiest way to understand it. Now, so characters talk to you. You've probably heard this term before. It's called breaking the fourth wall. It's really easy to demonstrate in my classroom because my classroom is basically a box. All right. So imagine you are inside my classroom, my amazing classroom, right? And I obviously have walls, and I have a floor, and I have a ceiling, right? But then there's this thing right here, right? What is that? Okay. That would be the fourth wall, so to speak. So that is the television screen, or at least that's what it used to be. It used to be a TV screen. And anytime, you're over here chilling with characters, having a conversation, whatever, if you ever had characters that would just like kind of do one of these and just look at the camera, and then like maybe characters would be like in a comedy sitcom or something, characters would be like, they do something like that and there's like a laugh track or whatever, that'd be breaking the fourth wall. If you guys have ever watched The Office does this a lot because you have Jim. Jim has been known to do this thing called Jim face, where if something ridiculous is happening in the show, Jim will literally just be like to the camera, and he'll react that way. So that is second person. Now, here's the complicated part. A lot of kids are like, but Demony, how do you do that in like stories and stuff? Well, in television and film, it's easy because you have people like, as you can see on the PowerPoint slide, you have Deadpool. Deadpool is literally a character in a movie who knows he's in a movie, and he'll break the fourth wall all the time. That's his superpower. That's his main superpower. He knows he's in a movie. In the comic books, he knows he's in a comic book, and he will even like look at the dialogue bubbles above his head, and he'll comment on it, or he'll think about it. And other characters are like, bro, what's wrong with you? What are you thinking? Like, what? And that's why Deadpool is kind of definitively the strongest superhero in the entire Marvel universe, because he already knows everything that's going to happen because he's in a comic book. That's just how it works. But he's crazy as a result. So, how do you do this in a book? Okay. Horror stories do this all the time, for the most part. One of my favorite ones, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. If you guys have seen this book in my classroom, I showed it off. It's the book that's the size of a phone book here. This is the book that is really, really crazy and has the, if you guys looked at the recommendations on the plot section, you guys will see that there are different areas of the book where you have to read them with a mirror. There's like music notes in there for some reason. The words will follow the characters on the page as they go up or down the stairs and do things like that. There are parts of the book that are censored. One of my favorite pages is this one where a character is going insane, so they just write the word forgive me over and over again. Well, this book is interesting because at some point in the book itself, it will start to reference the book itself to the main characters, and then the main character obviously is talking to you, the reader, because you are reading their work that they addressed to you. But when the book starts referencing itself, like it's the only book in existence in the universe of the book, and when the book starts self-referencing, it's a little creepy, and then it starts talking right to you, and it just gets all sorts of crazy. So it's a really good book. I read that in high school, and you'd be surprised. This is actually in a lot of high school libraries. It's a horror novel, and in case you want to know what it's about a tattoo artist who discovers a manuscript for a movie that doesn't exist, and so he tries to organize all the notes for the manuscript because the person who was doing it is dead. And the manuscript itself is the other story, and the manuscript is about a family that moves into a house where the inside of the house is bigger than the outside of the house. So the house, like, spontaneously will just grow on the inside. It will grow like these long, dark hallways that lead to nowhere, and then eventually the house develops like a labyrinth that is larger than an entire city. And yeah, it's kind of creepy. It's really good. I read it in high school as like a sophomore. I don't know why. I was not a very good reader, but I was like, sure, I'll read this book, and then I did. All right, now that's it for point of view. Point of view is pretty easy. So if you're going to move on to theme, keep in mind, if you're watching this video right now, theme is an entire lesson on itself. So just warning you ahead of time, the notes that we take in class for theme are extremely short. It's like one bullet point. Because theme is something else that I teach entirely. So in case you're watching this video series and you're like, why is there no video for theme yet? Well, it's because theme is like literally like a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing that I teach because you have to do it a certain way. So it might even be in your best interest just to skip theme or just look back at your reference guide, because your reference guide literally says theme is the universal. It's the hidden universal message of a story. That's all you're going to put in your notes. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, then you have some really good notes. Good for you.